favourite versions are jazz sax versions. Clapping Stuck some years ago, but also Houston Person has a beautiful, beautiful tenor sax solo. It's a song about the pipes calling Denny Boy to battle, to war, to go off and do his thing, his bit for the clan, the nation, I'm not sure. And there's one who's singing the song, I don't know, a girlfriend, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, I don't know, is expressing her fear, her concern, her hopes, her dreams, her hope that he'll return safely. And when the summer comes, they'll be reunited and all will be good. But he may not come back for more. And even if he does, there's no guarantee she will still be around. And she says, if I'm not, come to where I'm buried, my grave, and we'll be connected in some way. It is, I guess, in a sense, a song about the fear and the uncertainty of life, and particularly as war comes and as the world changes, and the grief and the uncertainty that we experience in those moments. It's also a song that reflects the mood in some ways of our world, a world that's changing. We don't know what it's like. This is new, this is different. We're confused, we're lost, some are fearful and panicking, others are just uncertain. Some are finding great peace, mind you, in working from home or being locked up at home. But it's a confusing, uncertain time, and we don't know what the world at the other end of this is going to look like. It'll be different. And I thought of this song too, because this week across the world, Christians, probably not gathering in churches, but gathering online and other places, will read an ancient story, 2,500 years old. A story that comes to us from the Middle East, really from Babylon and modern-day Iraq, but that's where it's situated. But it refers to Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the walled city, the capital city of the kingdom of Judah. And this walled city protected people. But then the armies of Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar came in from the east, and they waged war, and I guess there were battles outside the city. But then they fought against the wall to break through the wall, and finally they breached it in about 587 BC, and there was an almighty battle, and the city temple was destroyed. The leading citizens, artisans, craftsmen and so on were taken back off into Babylon as exiles. Then they lived, I guess, with relative freedom, but everything was different. There was different climate, different food, different language, different everything. They had food to eat and somewhere to live and sleep and probably work to do, but they grieved for home that was lost to them. Family, routines, friends, the familiarity, the worship, the God. They weren't even sure whether this God whom they worshipped was still alive. Was God killed by the Babylonian God in this war? Had God abandoned them? Had God, who no longer had a home on earth in the temple, that he disappeared back up into heaven? Or what about this God who would allow us to be in exile? There were questions, there were crises, there were all sorts of stuff in their world, much like our world today. Similar kinds of questions, I imagine, about this world that's changing and different, and how we live in it. Anyway, into the midst of this, one of the exiles that went off in that first round in 587 BC was called Ezekiel. He became a prophet of God, a mouthpiece, a voice for God, to speak hope and life back into the people, to bring God's word to this deathly nation, this group of people who were lost and afraid. And in this story, he's taken in a vision back to Jerusalem, to a valley. And it's probably a valley that featured some 10 years after that first exile, where the Babylonians came through again for a second round, and there was more bloody fighting, and the valley was filled with death as they took more people back into exile. And so Ezekiel's taken to this valley and shown in this valley in this vision. And it's just bones. It's dry, lifeless bones. The skeletons of the bodies have been picked clean by birds and wild animals. Dried and lifeless, scattered. And the Spirit of God says to Ezekiel, "Mortal one, can these bones live? Can these bones live? Can the bones of your people live? The lifeless, deathly, lost, dry bones of your nation, your people, can they live?" It's a question we ask ourselves perhaps in lots of situations in life, in the midst of grief, when we lose someone or something, or when life turns and it's hard and we feel lost and alone and afraid. Can these bones live? In the midst of coronavirus, where the world is changing, it's different, and we're exiled, not in far country, but in our own homes, and we don't know who we can, what we can do, who's got it, who's not, and we're told to stay put, and people are losing jobs and all sorts of changes, and we don't know what the world will look like. Can these bones live? Can our bones live? Can, not just physically, but emotionally? What will it look like? Can these bones of our nation live? And Ezekiel says, "I don't know, but you know." And the Spirit says, "Mortal one, prophesy to the bones to come together and form skeletons, and prophesy that there'll be sinews and muscles and flesh around the bodies." And so Ezekiel does as he's told, and he prophesies, and suddenly there's this rattling noise. You know the song, the Afro-American song, dry bones, end bones, end. I hear the word of the Lord, and the toe bone's connected to the foot bone. It comes from this story. Anyway, the bones rattle together and form skeletons, and then there's sinews and flesh and muscles and everything. And you've got a valley full of bodies, lifeless bodies. And the Spirit says, "Son of man, prophesy that the breath of God will breathe life and reanimate these bodies." And so he does so, and there's this sound of wind through the valley, loud wind, blowing through. The breath of God blows through and into each of these bodies and brings new life, and they come to life, and they're animated, and they're alive. And the Spirit says, "Son of man, or mortal one, these bodies represent your nation. These lifeless, dead skeletons that were there will become filled with life, with the breath and the life of God. So go and tell the people to live, that the Spirit of God will breathe life into them, and that they can live." And he did. They learned to live, not in Jerusalem, their home, but in Babylon, to live, to worship this God, to draw close to God and draw strength and life, new life in a new place. Down the track they would return home and rebuild the city, but for now it was to find life in the midst of this new and different world. The world they return to when they go home, their ancestors, would be very different as well. And they would learn to live in this new world because God was with them. And this is the message, I think, for us this weekend. God is with us. Just as those people weren't sure whether God was alive, dead, real, for them, whatever. Questions about God and about life. We have those questions. And this story, like so many others, says God is with us. In the midst of the mess, in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the loneliness and the aloneness and the exile and the fear and the uncertainty and the confusion, God is with us, and God will journey with us into the world as it will be. God will help breathe life into us, into our nation, into our families and our communities and our churches and our other organisations. They won't look the same, but if we trust God and breathe in the Spirit and live the life of love, of hope, of justice, of peace, God is with us. and the reign of God is around, leading us onwards, giving us hope. So may God's peace, hope, love and joy be with you now and through this time and into the future.